Recording. All right, this is Christopher Emge from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, the principal of the Success School. This is another fine Edgewood career panel. Today we're going to talk about Crane Naval Base and some of the opportunities and interesting things you can find there. And right now we're going to go over to our panel and just say who you are. So go ahead.
Hi, well, I'm Cherelle Hines, and I'm a Simplified Acquisition Specialist at the Naval Surface Warfare Center.
And my name is Skyler Parrish, and I'm an electrical engineer at the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane. So
Skyler, start off, give us a little sense of your career trajectory, how you ended up there doing engineering.
yeah, so graduated in 2018. This first job out of college. Knew about Crane through NJROTC at my high school. Went there quite a few times through that program, and kind of wanted to end up there doing defense work. So hit the target.
So where'd you graduate from college?
Tryon University.
And where is that?
Angola, Indiana.
Okay. And so, and you had that job as soon as you left, as soon as you had it going in after graduation?
Yeah, I had it. I had an accepted offer December of my senior year. So
okay.
everything
we'll
was
get into a little bit more. Cherelle, what? Give me a little sense how you ended up there. I know you're kind of a recent grad as well, which is fun to have.
Yeah, so my path to Crane is definitely unique. I'm not from Indiana. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I never heard of Crane, Indiana, or the naval base, but one of my directors in my department got a hold of my resume, and she gave me a cold call and gave me all the information about what Crane does, who they support, their mission, and what they do as a whole of the Department of the Navy. And I was living in Ohio at the time, but I said, you know what, let me go ahead and take this opportunity and to get into the acquisition career field. I heard it was a very great career path to be in on the business side. And so I took a leap of faith and moved from Ohio to Crane, Indiana, and I've been there about 3 years now, and I also was able to obtain recently my bachelor's in public administration. So I have been able to find my way in Crane as a non-engineering personnel on the business side, being able to still support the mission of Crane overall, and I've been able to find my fit.
Now, Cherelle, what is acquisitions? I don't know what that's just a word. I know it means collecting things, but
yeah,
and how is it different from like contracting?
Yeah, so it's all in the umbrella of contracting and procurement, acquisition. It's all under that umbrella. I'm a part of the contracting department, so I basically shop for the Department of the Navy to support missions at Crane. So what it looks like to me is I get a requirement or a need that some of the engineers are working on, the special projects that they work on, and they come to me to help fund and support their projects and buy parts and services for them. So I'm supporting you guys on the end of the procurement side of it. So it's all under the contracting umbrella, creating contracts, doing the contract administration, and then finally seeing the end result, which is the full contract award. And then our engineers and scientists can complete their mission.
So, let's backtrack a little bit. So you've been there 3 years. What is it? So a novice that doesn't know, other than it's a Navy base, which whatever a Navy base is doing in the middle of the heartland of the U.S., what is Crane Naval Base?
Yeah, so I get that all the time. They're like, you work for the Navy, but you're in the middle of southern Indiana. How is that possible? Shouldn't you be on a coast or a port? And it's been a learning curve for me as well, learning that there's different type of naval bases. There's surface naval bases, and then there's the ones on the ports near the edge, like Washington, D.C. or San Diego. But what makes Crane so special is because of the things that they work on. We are able to be protected in the inland base. So actually kind of like what we do, it's better that we're actually inland in the Midwest. So yeah, it's very unique, but working at Crane, working for a military base, it is very prestigious. I was a little intimidated when I first started the job, but I realized that I work with a lot of civilians. So it's more of like a family than an actual like active duty base. And I'm also serving the military, so I understand what it's like to be on a fully active duty base. But at Crane, it's just very welcoming. It's mostly civilians. We do have our military personnel, but the majority of the base is civilian. So it's basically like working at another like job somewhere else.
Now, did you work on with service personnel at one time, but like enlisted people? Did I hear that?
Yes, I have. So I'm in the Ohio Air National Guard. So I commit to my weekend drill training back at my unit. So being on the military side, I understand the structure and how particular military customs and decorum is. And that can be said as well at the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Crane. But I was a little more at ease working at Crane with it being more civilian personnel workforce.
Okay, great. Now, Skyler, what system engineer is that? Is that still your? Give us a little sense of what that entails. I mean, as much as you can, with authorization purposes.
Yeah, it's pretty broad. So my background is electrical engineering. That's what I studied in college and graduated with. But I am technically a systems engineer, at least depending on who you talk to. I like to say I'm an electrical still, but systems engineer, the whole point of it is to understand every aspect of a system. And kind of a good thing to look at is if you think of a car, something that everybody uses every day. It has a lot of moving components that have to work together in almost a symphony to get it down the road. And so what a system engineer does is he might not know exactly how a component was designed, but they would know, okay, that component goes to this one and the reason it goes to that one. So they have a broad understanding of the system, but it might not be very deep. And that's so that they can kind of come in and tie in the people that are doing the in-depth work. So system engineering is a very big field right now, and one that not a lot of people know about and not a lot of colleges teach about. A lot of colleges are still teaching the core kind of electrical, mechanical, computer engineering, and not really rounding everybody out. System engineers know everything about everything. So they'll know how the electrical components work with the mechanical and how the software coordinates with both of them. And so they're a very big part of what we do. That being said, I do mostly electrical work, so system engineering is very new to me, and being only going on my second year there, I haven't got to dive too much into it, but it is definitely the plan for my route.
You're kind of a generalist. Is that kind of, is a
Yeah.
little bit what's that, where you're needing to ask the right questions and sort of look at it and like, does this make sense?
Yeah, so system engineers are more of the people that have the communication skills that sometimes engineers lack, because they have to go out and communicate, be able to communicate effectively with people on different systems, on different pieces of equipment, and be able to come back and tell their team, okay, this is what we need to do to integrate this subsystem and this subsystem so that it can come together and make the whole symphony work together and get that car down the road.
So what other type of engineers are you working with to give our viewers a little sense of some of the other engineering positions within the context of Crane?
I mean, anything and everything. We work with electricals, we work with software engineers, informatics, not necessarily engineering, but a big part of what we do is informatics. Mechanical is huge. We have some chemicals on the base that do some polymer type deals and some other stuff like that. So, I mean, it's the whole spectrum. Any engineer under the sun is kind of at Crane.
Cherelle, give us a sense of, you're working a lot of different projects, and you're sort of assisting those. What are some of those type of projects, as much as you can say broadly, and what sort of services, what are you, give anything that would give insight of what you do exactly on kind of 9-to-5 basis?
Yeah, so I support a section of engineers at Crane. So I support the expeditionary warfare branch at Crane. So all the requirements and projects that come across my table are in support of that particular branch and who they support. So it might be different from what Skyler does on a daily basis. So I just support just a hand select few of engineers and their projects. So for me, I have procured a lot of really cool and interesting things, a lot of software and IT development I have bought for our engineers. I've also bought like small arm systems, radar systems that goes out on the ships. So I've bought some really cool, interesting things, and one opportunity I actually had to go out with the engineers for one of the services that I procured, and I got to see the final contract in action. It was testing a radar system for one of the Humvees. So the engineers invited me and my contracting officer and another acquisition specialist out to see the final result of that award. Because usually, you know, I'm in my desk and I do a lot of admin work. I do a lot of market research. I'm calling vendors and negotiating prices. But it was really nice to get out of my desk and to see what the cool things like Skyler does when they get like their hands dirty, and just kind of like seeing the full contract come to fruition. So I hope I get more opportunities like that down the road to get out my desk and see what they do hands-on.
And what's kind of unique on processes when it's the government, specifically the military, buying things? What are some of the things you have to go through? Because you're not a private company, you're not even a state agency. You have certain rules, regulations that when you are acquiring things. Give us a little sense of that. What were some of the?
Yes, and you're quizzing me here right now, so hopefully I can do what I've been taught. And so we are under the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR, and also being a part of the DoD, we're also under the DoD Federal Acquisition Regulation. So there is a long list of regulations and guidelines and policies that I have to follow when I procure items. Like I can't just go to Amazon.com and say, okay, I need a widget for one of the engineers, and then they can use that and put it in their systems. No, I can't do that. So it goes through a lot of vetting, a lot of government websites that I shop on. So like GSA and other government agencies, I look at private company vendors who have agreements with the government that we can do business with. I also, since I'm a part of the Simplified Acquisition Branch, I support a lot of small businesses in terms of small businesses that want to work for the government. So I do a lot of market research and reach out to vendors and say, hey, I have this requirement for my customer, the engineers, they need this widget or this part or this cable to complete their mission. Can your small business meet this capability? So I love connecting with small businesses, and kind of it helps with the economy to continue to grow, to support a newer business that has just opened, but they want to do business with the government. And an event that I had a chance to go to that unfortunately they didn't have this year was Buy Indiana. So I really get to go out and shake hands with the vendors here in Indiana, supporting Indiana businesses and who wants to do business with the government.
Now, one more technical question. What constitutes where you have to get a contract, and when is it just an approved vendor? What's the little bit of a differences between that when you're buying? Because you mentioned contracts.
Yeah, could you go into that question a little more as
No,
far as?
I was just wondering, you mentioned you do some work with contracts, and I wonder when you're having to work on a kind of a contract basis with a vendor, or are they just an approved contractor? Once you sort of get that approval, then you can use them. How does that work?
Yes, yes. So that's through my market research process. So I also am remembering another website that we use, the Small Business Association. We look at businesses that are able to do that have been approved to work with the government. So small businesses have to go through different processes to get approved to work with us. And so once they are approved and they get through that process, I'm able to reach out to them and hopefully be able to do business with them if they need our capabilities.
So Skyler, I have no idea on if you're just behind a desk the whole day, or are you out looking at some of these things at the naval base, checking them out in person? Give me a little sense of your day as a systems engineer, looking at all these sort of projects from a very generalistic viewpoint.
So it really depends. Some days it is just all behind the desk, and some days you're out there doing stuff. The programs that I'm on are sustainability programs. So like right now I'm sustaining something for 40 years, and it's already been out there for 40 years. So they're trying to sustain something for 80 years, and that's part of my project. And
Is
so
it like kind of capital asset management a little bit? Or how does that go into that?
a little bit. I mean, it's everything and anything. It comes to sustaining a parts inventory, to sustaining. So it's an electrical piece of equipment. So I have to make sure the electronic components aren't out of date and people can still manufacture them and stuff like that. Is a lot of what I do on my current project. On some of the other projects I've done, it involves traveling. You'll travel to meetings with certain stakeholders to talk about, and that's where the system engineers kind of come in, where they'll come in and do a presentation on the entire system, and you'll talk about, this is everything that we're doing right now, and these are the key things that need to happen. And then we'll all split off and go to our separate parts of the country and do those little key things, and then come back in maybe another month and say, okay, well, this is what we've got done, and this is what we need to do next. And so sometimes it's like that. It really just depends on the project that you're doing. I have people that work there that they're gone most of the month traveling because they have to go witness testing, or they have to go see if a manufacturer is doing something right and witness manufacturing. We also have testing facilities on the base. So sometimes if what's called environmental testing, so we test all of our equipment to make sure that it's going to last in an environment that's for what we think is going to happen to the piece of equipment. And so we might have to go witness that testing, or kind of design the specs around that test. So it's all up in the air. Everything's always changing.
And so you're kind of the mouthpiece for engineers. So you have both of that sort of, you have that communication with the scientific part. So you're allowed to do a little bit of sort of more interaction with some of the other engineers, would you say?
Maybe, yeah. I feel like Crane is pretty good on letting everybody speak their mind and everybody's heard. There are definitely the specific engineers that have the capability to present and communicate effectively, that will go out and talk to our main customers and kind of the DoD representatives that we work for. So sometimes we get to do that, and that is more something that I would do.
What's some of the problem solving that might come up in your position, like what are these things that, like, oh, I gotta do something right away, as much as you can, sort of, without giving, being too specific, but gonna give a sense of why you're hired to do the work you're doing.
Yeah. So a lot of the problem solving involves kind of going through, just like what I was saying, and sustaining equipment is keeping your product line healthy. making sure that it's still production ready. So if, for instance, a piece of equipment is no longer available, like say a specific resistor for some reason just isn't made anymore, or that type of resistor, because there's different types of resistors aren't made anymore, capacitors, you have to then go through and say, okay, well, is the current capacitor that's available still up to par for what we had in the original design? And then you have to go through the whole government process of changing that design and getting that through all the proper channels and making sure that that's all still not only design is considered, but also security. So if it's more of a sophisticated piece of equipment and it has like a computer chip in it that goes out of date for some reason, and that computer chip needs to be analyzed for security capability as well as production capability. So there's a lot of problem solving just on the electrical side, but then you throw in the security aspect of the government that we have to always consider, and then you have a whole nother field that you get to play with.
So do you all have like security clearance that you have?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does that involve? Since a lot of people wouldn't, know that it's one of the things, but there's levels. If you want to give our audience a little sense of what the clearance that's unique, very unique to a crane situation, DoD.
Yeah, and it's the security clearance is like a background check and really extreme vetting process that you are able to work for the government, interview process. So getting that security clearance can take from 3 months all the way up to a year. But I think in the end it's rewarding because just being able to work for the government and the benefits that we have and the job security that we have as a government employee, it kind of makes it worth it in the end. But getting that security clearance can be a little tedious. I don't know, Skyler, if you can.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have different levels of security clearances, and it really is on the government went to a need to know basis. So it doesn't really matter your security clearance too much. So, for instance, you can't just say, okay, I have a top secret clearance. This project is top secret, so tell me everything you have about it. If you don't have a need to know, you're not going to be able to figure it out. So security clearances are used just to vet people that they are trustworthy and capable of doing the job and don't have any other alternative motives to working for the government. So, and like Cherelle said, it does take quite a while through the hiring process just to give like potential hires like a little peek into what they might be signing up for is that. So when you get an offer from Crane, you kind of get this like tentative offer that is based on you passing a security clearance. So if anything comes back that they don't think is that you're capable of passing a security clearance, then they can revoke your offer even if you've accepted it. And then you can always, your security clearances can like fluctuate. So you can go from secret to top secret to whatever else is above that. At any time, it just depends on your project. And then when you go up, you go through a vetting process. So even though that we work at Crane right now, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't go through the same vetting process if we were to get a higher security clearance.
And our security clearance lasts 10 years. So it's really a good thing to have if, like, let's say we want to switch agencies or a different section, that security clearance is still with us, and after 10 years we'll have to get it again, but it's still, once we get it, it's still nice to have.
So you guys mentioned pay and benefits. Give us a sense of some of those, the advantageous elements of that pay and of those sort of benefits that come with working for the Department of Defense.
Well, I'll speak on my side. Before I worked at Crane, I was previously working in the private industry with an insurance company, Nationwide Insurance, on an entry level basis. And I found that it was really hard for me to progress past entry level without having my bachelor's. And I found like I kind of like hit a wall. Now, when I got the opportunity to go to Crane, it it was a lot more. How can I say this? It was better than entry level. Once I got in, even still not having my degree, I found Crane had a better pay rate for me as a newer acquisition specialist. And now that I have my bachelor's degree, it has opened up more doors and opportunity for me to progress up our pay scale on the contracting side. So for me, I think it's with with government, there are the pros and the cons compared to the private sector. But I think in the long run, as far as benefits and healthcare and insurance and retirement, it more appealing than the private sector.
Yeah.
If you wanna.
I mean, you're looking at one of the only organizations that still offer a true pension when you retire. So I know for younger people, it's hard to think about the retirement cycle and the age that you're going to get to, but it's something that you do need to think about when you're choosing a career field and possibly one that you're going to stay in for 30 years. Because the retirement package that Crane offers is pretty phenomenal and what they match. But that alone doesn't make it the only reason to go to Crane. Like Cherelle was saying, the pay scale is very computable to the private sector, but there will be drawbacks. The private sector will probably make a little more than you, just because they don't have the overhead costs of the benefits that we also get. So our insurance plans are pretty phenomenal. So when you tackle all the insurance plans onto the pay, onto the retirement plan, onto being eligible to retire at I think I can retire at 57 years old.
It's not even legal.
So it's pretty nice to get in young and get in for the long haul.
And I think, Skyler, I don't know if you can agree with me, but we get a lot of private sector that comes to Crane and retire out of Crane. I know on the business side, we have quite a few that have extensive private sector backgrounds, but they want to come to Crane and retire at Crane. As far as being a woman, we're going to be transitioning into paid family leave and maternity leave. So what, 12 weeks, I believe?
Yep. So starting October, I think, is that when that goes into effect, and we get 12 weeks of leave, of maternity leave when you have a child or foster a child, adopt a child.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really big benefit that they just passed into law here recently.
And that's paid, and that's just for the Department of Defense. Is that correct?
Yes, paid.
I'm not sure if it's just for the DoD, but I know it is for the DoD.
Okay.
It might be all employees, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Now the other thing is, what's the maneuverability as far as getting in different departments and and mobility within Crane or the Department of Defense? Is that an option there?
Yeah.
I can speak for me on the contracting side. If I go into USA Jobs and put in contract specialists, there are thousands of jobs all across the country, even overseas, that pops up for other government agencies. So my career field is a high need, as Skyler as well, being an engineer. So the experience that I'm getting at Crane is going to pay dividends if I do so choose to move on. But I feel like staying here at Crane, I'm able to continue to form my network here. It's more of a smaller community. And so I feel like I have a lot of growth and potential here at Crane, especially since just recently graduating. And Crane also offers tuition assistance. I do have a few friends that are still in their undergrad degree, and that is being funded by Crane. So Crane really puts in an investment in their employees that I have seen. So yeah, I would say in my career field, it is definitely transferable to other agencies, a seamless move.
And just you talked about there's a lot of different positions outside of engineering and acquisitions. What are a couple other things, just if you're looking at different fields that Crane employs in a decent sized number? I know there'd be all sorts of, anything that large, it'd be a bunch of things. Is there any other positions that kind of come to mind? You might have mentioned that before.
Yeah, I mean, staying within the engineering field, we have technicians that do a lot of the work for us as well. And so technicians are people that are really good with their hands, and they kind of make the engineer's vision come to life. And then you have admin people, and I mean, there's a lot.
Okay.
Logisticians,
Yeah.
I see a lot of
What are those exactly?
that. Logisticians, I don't know, Scott, have you worked closely with logisticians? For me, on my end, it's more of like the supply and managing the assets and like the supply chain.
Yeah, so, and stuff that logisticians and kind of might do is managing assets on Crane. So Crane is pretty big, and it has a lot of buildings and a lot of bunkers that we keep a lot of things in. And all of that has to be accounted for. So we have a lot of people that will make sure that we have stuff that's up to code, whatever's stored in there correctly, because everything's stored to a specification regarding humidity, temperature, sometimes temperature controlled. So year round, it'll be a certain temperature in some buildings just because of the type of material that's in there. And so the logisticians kind of keep track of that as well sometimes. And then we have shipping and receiving also at Crane. So we have those type of people that will move around, and they'll bring, I mean, Crane, like I said, is pretty big. So we have actual like shipping and receiving, that everything goes to a central place. And then if I ordered something and it's coming to me, then they'll bring it to my building and bring it to my shipping receiving in my specific building, and then that shipping receiving person will bring it up to me. So we have quite a spectrum of people that can work there and that are working there.
Yeah, and I would say again, STEM, non-STEM. On the business side, I do work with the comptroller department, which is finance, budgeting, budget analysts, financial analysts. Which they have an important role at Crane as managing our overall fund, which is, I would say, in the billions of dollars of the money that is obligated and handled throughout Crane. So they offer a crucial role. If someone would say are in the accounting field, the finance, and in those fields in college, they can find a place in Crane as well. Budget or business management, a lot of business management majors in the finance side as well. And
the Department of Defense has a one rap is a lot of red tape, difficult to do things. Is that really a drawback, or is there any other drawbacks to working at Crane that, that maybe makes it a little bit more difficult or challenging?
Yeah, so the red tape is a thing. It is there, but it's there for a reason. It's there not to move. When you're dealing with systems as large as what I deal with, like submarines, that submarine needs a function 365 days a year, no doubt. And so that red tape is there to not only protect us from doing something that might endanger someone else, but also protect those people that are using that submarine. So we have to use tried and true technology that still most of the time is on the cutting edge of technology out there, but it is tried to the depths of everything. So, but it is sometimes irritating.
Yeah, and I can chime in as well on the contracting side. I want a contract awarded super fast so I can get it done and get it to our engineers and it can get started, but it just can't happen that way. I do a lot of research on the front end, so I'm not like fixing mistakes on the back end. And as an acquisition specialist, I really need to be accountable and a steward of the taxpayers' dollars. So that means not just going with the someone's bid and it's too costly, negotiating the price down, negotiating to the commercial market value, and just really being a steward of the taxpayer dollars. So that does entail a lot of time, and again, with the red tape, it's going to take a little bit of time, but again, we have a sense of responsibility working for the government, and that's something that I've learned in my short career, is that I really value the sense of purpose that I have being a government employee versus private sector, because it just puts a different sense of urgency to what I do and what I support.
Great. Now, my last question for both of you, is there anything you want to share with our audience that they might not know about Crane, that could provide them a little bit of insight, that, or maybe something that surprised you, or anything of interest?
Yeah, Crane, I learned, is like a historical site. Scott, if you want to correct me, but just touring the base and the natural wildlife, or Lake Greenwood, and the different historical sites, and just kind of like the history that is behind Crane, has been really interesting to learn. And it's just kind of like in awe, especially during the summertime, working at Crane and being able to go down to the marina. Not many people know that we have like the marina with cabins, and we can take out the pontoons and go across the river there. But yeah, Crane is just really a beautiful place to work at.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. I mean, one of the biggest benefits that we have, and any government employee has this, they can get on most government installations, but being in Indiana, Crane is a nature preserve. So they have federal regulations guarding all the nature that is there. And like Cherelle was saying, we have that I think it's 800 and some acre lake that's out there that we can go out, and it's extremely quiet on the weekends because no one's there, and it's a giant base. So just being able to go out there and enjoy nature is one of the big benefits that I see working there.
Great. Well, I thank both of you, Cherelle, Skyler. I thank both of you for your time today. Hopefully our audience learned a little bit of something about Crane. I know I did, and I'm sure I'll talk to both of you rather soon. Have a good rest of your day, and get out and enjoy some nature today.
Thank you.
All right.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.